First of all, where we use this Informatica. So Informatica mostly will be using in data warehouse, right? Data warehouse world, right? So what is data warehouse? So why every company is looking towards data warehouse now? Not now. It started long back, but it's very much, pretty much limelighting these days, right? The data warehouse. So why we came to the concept called data warehouse, and then why we need Informatica. See, let's assume one multinational bank. Okay, so let's assume it's like some Chase bank. Okay, so if you have a this multinational bank. Okay, so let's assume the number of branches for the multinational bank is 10,000. Okay, so throughout the world. Okay, and assume that so each branch has let's say 1 lakh customers. Okay, so if you assume each bank has 1 lakh customers and every customer do 2 transactions per day. So this is an example I'm doing. So you are able to hear me, right?
Yes,
hello?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so let's assume every customer is performing 2 transactions in a day. Okay, so that means for whole multinational bank, so what are how many transactions are happening in real time? That means so 10,000 into 1 lakh into 2, correct? So that means per day we have almost like 2 billion, close to 2 billion transactions in a day for any multinational bank, right? So these figures are not, it's what I'm telling you, these are all the approximate figures. Okay, so that means the traffic which is being faced by any multinational bank is like 2 billion transactions in a day. So that means, let's say if you perform one transaction, okay, so probably let's assume the transaction of transferring the funds to your friend's account. Okay, so let's say if you are transferring the funds to your friend's account, what happens generally? So there are multiple records which will be affected in database, in actual database. Okay, so if you transfer the money, what happens? The money record from your account will be deducted. The money will be deducted, right? So that means the balance amount will be reduced in your account. So that means the record related to your balance is updated. That is one record, and also the record related to your friend. That means money is credited into your friend's account, right? So that means the record related to balance related to your friend account also will be modified. So that means what I'm saying here, so for any one transaction the multiple records are getting affected, correct? That means if any multinational bank has around 2 billion transactions, which means almost like 4 billion records are getting modified in a day, right? So it's a vague example I'm giving. Okay, so the level of transactions and the level of traffic which is being faced by any multinational bank is like 4 billion records are getting affected. Either it might be modified or added, whatever it may be. Okay, so in database, so this is how the transactions are happening. So then how can we, generally any bank or any other systems, traditional systems. Okay, so how does this looks like generally? See here. So what is the OLTP? What is OLTP? Online transaction processing system. Okay, so which is called as OLTP. That means it's a live system, traditional system. Okay, so generally any operations, generally all the operations will be happen on OLTP systems, online transaction processing system. Okay, which generally contains a processor, okay, and then a memory disk. It's on a high level I'm telling. Okay, so generally it contains a processor and then memory disks where you will be storing all the live data, production data in your system. Okay, so why I came here? So that means this is the traffic which we are facing in these systems. Okay, OLTP, online transaction processing systems. Okay, used by any organization. Okay, so now which is called as online transaction processing system. Okay, let's assume this Chase Bank, for example, this Chase Bank is established in the year of 2001. Okay, so let's say, because I mean at the starting of the establishment, so you will be having very less customers, right? So let's say you have some 10,000 customers or 1,000 customers. Okay, you have only 1,000 customers. So generally what happens, so the number of customers are very less than the number of the records stored in your database will be very less, right? So that means in the year 2001 the traffic is like around 1,000 records in database. Okay, 1,000 records in a day, let's assume. Okay, in the database. Okay, that means, so at that time, because the traffic in your database is very less, so let's say if any customer performs transaction, okay, that time, okay, what happens, let's assume it takes only 1 second per transaction. Okay, so you are understanding, right? You are following with me.
Yeah, I'm following. Yeah, yes.
Yeah,
Clear. Yep.
okay, so let's say after 1 year, in year 2002, okay, so the customers got increased. Okay, let's say the customers increased to 10,000. Okay, so that time what happens, even the number of records get increased in your database, right? Because the number of customers increased, the number of transactions will increase. So in the same way, the number of records in your database will increase, right? So let's say 10,000, the records per day got increased to 10,000. So in the same way, so whenever the traffic increases, your transaction time also gets increased, right? So let's assume the transaction time increased to 10 seconds. That means any customer performs a transaction in system, so it takes 10 seconds per transaction. Okay, so in the same way, let's say go on, like, I mean, probably by 2005 year, your, I mean, customers are increased enormously. Okay, it's increased to something like 1 lakh. Okay, 1 lakh or 10 lakh. Okay, so your, even the number of records in your database also gets increased proportionately, right? So now, because the number of records increased in your system, even the transaction time taking also increased. Okay, let's say the transaction time increased to 100 seconds or so. So that means close to like 1.5 minutes, right? So let's assume the transactions increased a lot and the transaction time increased to 1,000 seconds. That means per transaction, so if any customer performs one transaction, it takes 1,000 seconds. That means close to 15 minutes. Okay, so if any customer performs a transaction and it takes 15 minutes to complete the transaction, so that customer is not going to happy, right? And then, so what is the solution? Because the your data is increasing enormously and the time taking for any transaction increased enormously, and which is not being satisfied by any customer. Okay, now what is the solution? There are two solutions. One is you increase your processes parallelly. Okay, increase your processes parallelly and then distribute the load and distribute your load among these processes, right? That is one solution. And what about, see, that means what I'm doing, I'm distributing the load into multiple processes so that it can handle the data. So that means it's again cost affair, right? That means, so to handle the large amount of the data, operational cost will increase. Okay, so what is another solution? So the first solution is not related to our topic. Okay. So what is another solution? The second solution is keep a threshold for your particular stored data. So keep a threshold for a particular number of records or for a particular period of the data. So what does it mean? So threshold means, so let's say you assume the higher management or any business analyst or the architects will be monitoring your system, and they will be concluding like, I mean what, so my system is handling the data of 5 years, okay, with minimal transaction time, okay, with minimal transaction times, so that customers are happy, okay. And if it crosses 5 years of the data, so let's say in 5 years my database is collecting around 1 billion data, and my transaction time is only 10 seconds, that means it handles either 1 billion data or it handles 5 years of the data, okay. So that is the threshold for this chase bank, okay. So we need to come up with one threshold point, okay. So let's say chase bank concluded that, so our system is very stable and the performance is very high and there is no issue with the customers until 5 years, until our system handles 5 years of the data. If it crosses, so the system becomes slow and the transaction time increases enormously and the customer is not happy, okay. Now, so the chase bank came to the conclusion for 5 years of the data. Let's say, so it's 2014, right? Now 2015, let's assume, okay. So that means the chase bank can handle the data of 2015, 2014, 2013, 2012, 2011, okay. These 5 years of the data. And let's say 2010 also, okay. So that means it can handle the data till 2010. Okay, so what about the rest of historical data? 2009, 2008, 2007, 2006, and so on. Okay, so now either this rest of historical data, again it depends on your what I can say, the business. Okay, sometimes what happens, the few business companies needed 30 years of the data into production. Okay, it depends on business. Okay, it's an example, vague example I'm giving. Okay, so what about this historical data? Okay, so this historical data, you can move this historical data into other system so that you can handle only this particular 5 years of the data with an efficient manner. Okay, efficiently. Okay, so the historical data from 2009 to 2001 can be moved into some other system. Okay, what is that other system? So other system is called as OLAP system. What is OLAP system? Online Analytical Processing System. Okay, it's an online analytical processing system called as OLAP as well. Okay, which is also known as data warehouse. Okay, so that means what I'm doing now, I'm taking out all the historical data from production system, also called as OLTP. I'm taking out all the data from production system, OLTP system, and storing it in my data warehouse system. Okay, OLAP system, online analytical processing system. Okay, so who will be using this online analytical processing system? Okay, this is an historical system which will be used by the higher management people like CEOs, CFOs, directors, and some business analysts. Okay, so this online analytical processing system is called as data warehouse system and this will be used as a historical system, and this will be used by higher managements like CEOs, CFOs, directors to analyze the historical data, okay, their company's historical data, okay, and by analyzing the historical data, they can come to the critical decision. I mean, they can take critical decisions for their future organizational growth. Okay, so that means this data warehouse contains the historical data. Okay, which will be used by the higher management people for making their critical decisions to increase their revenue in future. Okay, let's say for example, so let's assume now this Chase Bank customer, I mean this Chase Bank higher management wants to see, so how many we have till date, I mean from past 30 years, let's say past 30 years from 2001, from 2010. Okay, so how many we have, how many customers till now, how many existing customers we have. Okay, so let's say it comes to, I mean the higher management or business analyst comes to the system, and then they will retrieve the data. Let's say they got to know around 1 billion customers are associated with our bank. Okay, and now they want to retrieve the data of children, because whenever you associate with your bank, you will be providing your family details, right? Now they want to retrieve the number of children associated to our customers.
Ravi?
Yeah.
Ravi, you're actually breaking.
Oh, I'm breaking now?
Yeah, you actually broke, like for the past 3 sentences you broke.
Oh, is it?
Please repeat.
Yeah, now is it fine?
Yeah, like it was, you stopped, you started breaking your existing customers.
Right,
You were
okay.
saying-
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say now the higher management want to retrieve the data from historical system called data warehouse. Okay. They want to retrieve the number of existing customers, how many customers are associated with our bank from past 30 years. Okay. Let's say they got to know, they retrieved the data and they got to know 1 billion customers are, there are 1 billion customers from past 30 years. Okay, and now they want to retrieve the data of children associated with these customers. Generally, what happens whenever we associate with the bank, we provide the family details. Okay, that family details also collected into their database system. Okay, let's say they got to know 10 billion children are associated with the customers. Okay, now they want to retrieve the details of the products, okay, which they offered from past 30 years. Okay, and they retrieve the details of products which they offered from past 30 years. Let's say they want to retrieve, they got around 30 products and they want to retrieve the one product which is generating higher revenue from past 30 years, and the revenue is in incremental fashion. Okay, let's say they got to know the product called X is generating very higher revenue from past 30 years. Okay, and the revenue is in incremental fashion. Okay, and now by knowing this historical data saying this the product called X is making lot of revenue, okay, from past 30 years, and now what they can decide, so this is our critical product which we can target. Let's say these children, so they retrieve 10 billion children, right? Let's say 50 million of children, not okay, once again, let's say 50 million. Okay, so they have 50 million of children associated to their customers, and now they got to know the product called X is making higher revenue from past 30 years. So let's say these children are becoming major, they can retrieve their age details, and then these children are becoming major after 2 years, let's assume. So that means these children, 50 million children, are their future customers, right? Because they will be becoming, they will become major after 2 years. That means the product called X is making higher revenue for me from past 30 years, and the revenue is incremental fashion. So that means they can target this product for their upcoming customers who are becoming major after 2 years. That means they can invest more on this particular product called X for any promotional activities like offering free accounts or offering some gifts, etc., etc. But they can target this product for these children who are becoming major after 2 years. So that, I mean, why I'm telling this? This is an example I'm telling. This is how they are going to use the historical data which is stored into your online analytical processing system or data warehouse system. So they can make these kind of critical decisions to increase their revenue. Okay, so now you understand the exact difference between the online transaction processing system and the online analytical processing system. So what is happening here? See, online transaction processing system is a live system where the records are, I mean, whenever the new customers joins, the record is getting updated. Whenever the customer performs transaction, the record is getting updated. That means in online transaction processing system, you are performing at the back end in database, it is performing insert records operation, modify records operation, and delete records operation, because this is a live data, right? And what about online analytical processing system? What we are doing here, we are just loading the data of your historical data, and then what kind of operations you are performing? Just you are performing retrieving the data. That means you are just performing select queries, right? So that means, so that's the difference between your OLTP and OLAP. So that means the purpose of OLTP is totally different: to maintain, to modify, and to maintain the live data, correct? The purpose of OLAP, data warehouse, is different. The purpose is to analyze the data, just to retrieve the data and analyze the data, correct? So that means the purpose of OLTP is totally different from the purpose of OLAP, correct? So now, so what are all the, see, because the purpose is totally different, the way we design these systems are totally different. Okay, so what is the method which we follow to design the OLTP? Generally we follow relational modeling. What is the model which we follow? We follow the relational model, model to generate, to design these kind of systems. What about data warehouse system? So we generally use dimensional modeling. Okay, because see, the purpose of these two systems are totally different. So that's why they want, we use the different model to design the data warehouse systems or OLAP systems. Okay, so what is that model which we follow? Dimensional modeling. Okay, so I'm going to explain this, what is dimensional modeling and what are all the different key concepts of dimensional modeling in our further classes, not in demo session. Okay, so now you understand what is the difference between OLTP and OLAP, right? And now, okay, so where does this Informatica comes into picture? Because see, so we are extracting the data from online transaction processing system and then historical data and loading it into your data warehouse system, right? So who is going to do that? So what kind of process we are following? I mean, see, so to extract the data from your OLTP system and load it into your OLAP system. So all the organizations these days came in, I mean, they have a, what I can say, they define a process, best practice called ETL process. Okay, that means all the organizations following a best practice or following a process called ETL process, which is called, I mean, means extraction, nothing but extraction, transformation, then loading. Extracting, transformation, and then loading. Okay, so that means they are going to extract the data, transform the data, and load it into your data warehouse. So this is called ETL process. Okay. Now ETL process can be done manually or it can be done by using automation tools. Okay. So you can follow ETL manually, but it's a time-taking process. And you have automation tools. Okay, you have around thousands of automation tools in the market. Okay, to perform this ETL process, this extraction, transformation, and then loading process. Okay, so out of these 1,000 tools, Informatica is one tool. Okay, which will be used by several organizations. Okay, many organizations. Okay, this Informatica alone captures around 30, I think it's 25 to 30% of market. Okay, existing market. Sorry, 25 to 30% of existing market. Okay, and rest of the tools, 999 tools, covers around 60%. Okay, so that's Informatica alone covers almost 25 to 30% of the market. So that's the demand we have for the Informatica in the current market. Okay. So Malika, I mean, do you have any questions till now?
No, as of now, it's totally clear what you've explained up to this. No doubt.
Yeah, Malika. Okay. So just give me 1 minute, please.
Sure, take your time.
We are I mean, why everyone is behind data warehouse systems these days, and then why we use the Informatica, right? So that's the basic concept. Okay, so to get a feel of Informatica, okay, so what I'm going to do now for you, I'm going to give you high level overview of the Informatica architecture. Okay, right? So can I go ahead, Malika?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, you can see my screen, right? I mean, the presentation, whatever related to, I mean, it's
yes. Yes,
drawn by
I can
my own. Okay. See, so now, before I go ahead, so as I said, we are extracting the data from OLTP systems, right? So this OLTP systems might not be a single technological system. Okay, that means the data, whatever you are storing, live data, whatever you are storing, okay, so that might be multiple technological systems. Okay, means some data, Chasebond might be saving some, I mean, storing some data. They might be storing in some SQL. They might be storing some different kind of data in Oracle, or they might be storing like employee expenses, etc. They might be storing in simple flat files like Excel or Notepad or whatever it may be. Okay, or they might be using some web services also, right? Some data might be stored in the form of web services, XML, etc. Okay, so these are all the different technological systems. That means the OLTP systems are not single technology system. These are all might be multiple technological systems. Some bank might be using only Oracle, some other organization might be using flat file as their source system. Some organization might be using SQL as source system, their source system, right? So from now on, whenever I say source, you assume it is OLTP system, and whenever I say target data, it's a OLAP system. Okay, so here if you see, these are the left part, whatever you are seeing before this vertical line. Okay, so these are all the different source systems. Okay, and the right part, are you able to see the right part as well, the vertical line?
Yes, yes, I can see. Yep.
Okay, right. So the right part is it's a target system. Okay, so in middle of the source and target, you can see all this, right? So these are all. This is an Informatica architecture. Okay. Now, if you see source, you can see the different technology systems like standard messaging system, web service system, packaged applications means like SQL, Oracle, DB2, whatever it may be, and then flat files and mainframe. So that means this Informatica supports these different technological systems. All these kind of technology systems it can support. Okay. In the same way, target also. In the same way, targets also. These are all the different technology systems can be supported by Informatica. Okay. So now you are seeing this middle, right? So this is all the architecture of the Informatica. Okay. So what does this Informatica majorly contains? It contains the 5 major components. Okay. One is client component and repository service, integration service, reporting service, and then repository. Okay. So probably this, I mean, whenever I am explaining this architecture, probably you might feel like it's very heavy for you. Okay. So once we start actual Informatica tool introduction, so this you can, I mean, of course, whenever I'm going through the classes, actual Informatica tool, so I'm going to relate this architecture with actual day-to-day operations also. Okay. So right now, yeah, right.
Actually, sorry to stop you. Thing is, like, I have a good idea about this architecture, like, but I don't know the detailed view about it, like the way what exactly we do inside this.
Sure, sure. I'm going to explain that each and every component. What does it do?
Right. But I do have a good idea about the architecture.
Oh, good. Yeah. Okay,
Yes,
Malika. So let me just explain. So what is this client? Okay. What is this? You have different components, right? I mean, integration service and all these things. So now, if you see this client component, so this is your what is client? It's a user interface tool which will be used by end user in day-to-day operations. That is called clients. Okay. So what are different clients we have in Informatica? You have repository manager, Powercenter designer, Powercenter workflow manager, Powercenter workflow monitor, and then admin console. So leave about this admin console as of now. So these are all the different client components, the client applications which will be used by Informatica user, Powercenter user. Okay. So what is this repository manager? So this repository manager which will be used to generally to create users, to create passwords, and to create folder structure or projects, and to provide the privileges for those folders. Okay. So that means end user will be using this tool to create the new users, I mean to manage the new users passwords, and then to create the projects and to provide the privileges to those folders. Okay. High level I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you how we will be relating these, how does this client components interacts with these services. Okay. And then what about this designer, Powercenter designer? So this is the tool which will be used to create the actual mappings. Okay. GUI mappings, user interface mappings, to perform actual extraction, transformation and loading. Okay. And we create the by using Powercenter designer we will be creating the mappings. Creating mappings means what? Generally, I mean, to actually perform extraction, transformation and loading, we need a plan, right? So we will be creating the user interface mappings according to your business rules. Okay. And then save it. You can save those mappings, okay, by using Powercenter designer. Okay. It's a high level. And then what about this workflow manager? So by using workflow manager, we are going to associate the above created mapping, okay, here to your job, okay, to your session. Okay. So we are going to map the above, we are going to associate the above mapping to your session, and then we are going to run the jobs where actual extraction, transformation and loading happens. Okay, we are going to run the jobs by associating with the above created mappings, and then actual extraction, transformation, loading process will be performing. Yeah, go ahead. Tell me.
Ravi, can you just explain this part? Sorry, the workflow manager part again.
Yeah, sure. So workflow manager, what we are doing, we are, so we have created mapping, right? We are just created plan by using designer. So we didn't perform any extraction, transformation, loading. We just created mappings. Okay. By using workflow manager, you can create jobs where you will be associating the mappings, the required mappings, whatever you created. Let's say the mapping, you created 10 mappings, out of which I'm picking up second mapping, fourth mapping, and fifth mapping. So these mappings you will be associating here, okay, and then actual job you are going to run here. So what happens once you run the job? So it extracts data from your source system as per your mapping, and then it loads the data to your targets. So before loading, it also transforms the data based on your mapping. Okay, so that's the high level. Okay, so once we start actual tool, I'm going to explain you in detail. Okay, so just as of now, you keep in mind workflow manager is a tool where we will be running actual jobs to perform extraction, transformation, and loading. Okay, and what about workflow monitor? So workflow monitor is a tool where we will be monitoring all the transactions happening. Either, I mean, that means while extracting the data, transforming the data, and loading the data. So how many records are loaded, how many records are failed to load, how many records successfully loaded. So what are all the different errors that are being triggered by the Informatica. So everything you are going to monitor your health of the job. Okay, so that is called workflow monitor. Okay, so now, so this is high level clients. Now where does these services comes in the picture? So let me explain. So here, let's say whenever the user, Informatica user, uses this client called repository manager. So this repository manager generally manages users, passwords, and privileges and the projects, right? So whenever user performs some operations by using repository manager. So before I go ahead with services, let me explain about repository first. So what is this repository? So the repository, so whenever you install your Informatica onto your system, so there is a prerequisite. So you need to have a database system. Okay, before you install your Informatica on any system, so you need to have a database system. Either it might be Oracle, it might be SQL, whatever it may be. Okay, okay. So whenever you install your Informatica on your system, what happens? Around 500 to 600 base tables, okay, will be loaded into your database system because you have already database system. So whenever you install your Informatica, 500 to 600 base tables will be loaded to your database system. So which is also called as metadata. Okay, so these tables contains the data related to Informatica. Okay, and so as I told you, so by using repository manager, whenever you perform operations, all the data related to the operations will be stored on the repository, okay, with the help of repository service. So this repository service, it's a service, helps Informatica to store all the operations whatever performed by the end user for the repository manager, whatever the folders they create, whatever the projects they create. So all the data will be stored under repository with the help of repository service. Okay, and then designer. So we are creating mappings, right? What is mappings? You will be having source. I'm going to explain in detail later, so don't get confused. So whenever we create the designer, whenever we create a mapping, you will be creating your source, you will be creating your destination tables, you will be creating the transformation logics based on your business rules. Okay, so whenever you create all the mappings, end user, whenever end user creates these mappings, all the objects related to these mappings, all the data related to these mappings will be stored under repository with the help of repository service. Okay. Now, so till here I am talking about Informatica. So nowhere I was talking about, external source systems. Of course, I am creating just mapping here. Okay. Then comes to this workflow manager. So actually what is happening here? We are mapping, we are associating above mapping. So whenever I run the job, actually what is happening, it extracts the data from your external source system, not from the Informatica, okay? External source system like messaging system, flat file, whatever it may be. So that means this integration service comes into picture. What it do? So whenever you run the job, this integration service integrates Informatica with the external source system and the external target system. That means whenever I run the job, this integration service helps Informatica to connect with your external source system and the extract the data as per your mapping, extract the data from the source system and then transform the data and then load the data. So what happens internally? See, whenever you create the mapping, let's say source called A, your source table is A and the target table is B. Okay, so what it will do, the integration service reads the data here because all the mapping stored, the mapping related data is stored in your repository. This integration service reads the data here, it reads the table A. Okay, so it reads the table A and then the corresponding, it integrates the corresponding table from your source system. Okay, it finds the corresponding table definition from the source system, let's say Oracle, and it extracts the data from the corresponding table A and then transforms the data based on the rule and then loads the data to the corresponding table. Okay, so that is how the integration service helps the Informatica. So do you have any question, Malika?
No, it's clear.
Okay, and now, so what is this reporting service? See, so as I said, so whenever you run the job, okay, the transactions happens, like means it extracts thousands of the records and loads the data, transforms the data and loads the data. Okay, so whenever you perform ETL, some records might be successfully loaded, some records might fail to load. Okay, so what is the reason behind failing the data, and what are all the different queries being fired by the Informatica? Okay, all these data, how many records are loaded, how many records fail to load, what are all the different error messages triggered, all these data will be stored under before I go to reporting service, I'm talking about session log files. Okay, all these transaction related data, number of records loaded, number of records failed to load, the reason behind failing, all these transactions will be stored under a file called session log file. Okay, so this session log file is an operating system level file. Okay, so whenever you perform, whenever you run the job, it stores each and every transaction in your session log file. Okay, so now where does this reporting service comes into picture? So as I told you, whenever you run the job, okay, you can see all the transactions on your monitor by using your workflow monitor. Okay, so it's a tool which opens whenever you run the job. You can open this monitor, workflow monitor tool, and you can see how much time it is taking each transaction, how many records are passed, how many records are failed to load. So all these things you can see on your monitor. But how? So by using reporting service. So the reporting service helps you to populate all the data onto your monitor by using workflow monitor. Okay, how many records are passed, failed, and everything. Okay, in a structured manner. Okay, it pulls the data from your session log file. As I told you, all the data is stored under session log file. So this reporting service helps Informatica to pull the required data from your session log file and arrange in a structured manner so that you can easily understand the transactions and the error messages. All the transactions you can easily understand. You can easily understand how many records are passed to load, how many records are failed to load, what is the reason behind it, and whatever it may be, everything. So that means this workflow monitor, whenever this workflow monitor comes into picture, this reporting service helps the Informatica to see each and every transaction with the help of session log file. Okay, so you understand, Malika?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Clear.
So these are all the services which involved in your Informatica. And one more thing is, yeah, another client we have is admin console. Okay, so I mean, for testing purpose or for any developers, this admin console will be using very limited. Okay, so why do we need this admin console? So by using admin console, we will be configuring these services. Okay, integration service, reporting service, and repository services. So we will be configuring these services and we will be managing the users. Okay, all these things. And this Informatica generally operates on a domain control. You will be having one domain. Under domain, you will be having multiple nodes. Okay, you will be having node, a single node or multiple node. So what is meant by node? So node is a logical division of your memory. Correct? So that means this Informatica operates on a particular domain, and under domain you will be having different nodes. Okay, so node nothing but it's a logical division, okay, of your memory. Let's assume you are using your system under which you are using load runner, performance tool like load runner, and you are using automation tool, everything. So you'll be using several tools along with your Informatica. Generally what happens, different users throughout your organization, everyone will be using, right? So now what happens, your memory, whole memory is being distributed to all these tools, correct? So that means the performance comes down, right? So generally what happens, this Informatica, I think someone is taking note. I'm getting disturbance. Okay, so what happens, this Informatica allocates a separate node to its own purpose. Okay, that means it allocates a memory so that it can load the balance. It can balance the load whenever it performs the millions of, because you see, Informatica extracts millions of the data. In ideal situation, it extracts 400 to 500 million records, okay, in a day. Okay, so that means it manages nodes, it load balance within the nodes. Okay, so generally, I mean, this administrative people generally handles this admin console, where they will be balancing the load within the nodes so that the performance of our Informatica is very effective manner. Okay, so you understand, right? So any other questions? I mean, by this I have completed my demo session. So do you have any questions, Malika? You can go ahead now. Hello. Yeah, Malika, I think you are on mute.
Ravi?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So it's actually clear throughout. I just had one question, like,
Yeah.
will you be giving me any kind of real-time projects or anything, like just for more practice? Like you have already mentioned that you'll be giving an assignment in the project lab.
Real-time projects means, you see, I mean, it's not like, I mean, the database where you have thousands of the data, but of course, for each and every transformation. So I'm going to give you the real-time scenarios. I mean, real-time scenarios means I cannot replica my environment related to real-time, but the examples,
Yep.
whatever I give you.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, the example. Yeah, just to
Yeah.
familiarize.
Exactly. So I'm going to tell you the real-time examples, and then I'm going to show you practically in Informatica
Okay.
all the transformations, and then I'm going to make you to practice the same as well.
Sure. Like, yeah, actually the thing is like, for the past 2 days I tried installing the Informatica Powercenter the 9.6.1 version, and so somewhere at one point I was getting stuck, like while installing the Oracle database, like the Oracle Legendary and the others. Yeah, I tried, and then I had to stop midway because it was asking for some port numbers. And
Right.
So
Yeah. We are going to take care of that. I'm going to install the Informatica on your system.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
sure.
once we complete I mean, for the past 6 classes, okay, so you'll be having only theoretical part. I mean, so you'll see some key concepts of data warehouse, and then and so on. Okay, and then we install
I do understand.
and then we install the Informatica, and then total practical sessions you'll be having all 32 practical sessions.
Yep, sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
Any other questions, Malika?
That's the only thing. Like, actually, the demo session was really good. Like, yeah, I got a clear picture of what is what. Like, whatever you have explained.
Yeah, I hope you understand. And if you can tell me, if I'm going in faster manner or slower pace, so like I can change the pace.
You're actually good. You're actually good. No, that's fine. Yeah.
Thanks, Malika, for joining. Okay, and Srini, are you there?
Yeah.
Srini, are you there? Hello, Srini?
Okay, I guess he's in there. Maybe.
Okay, that's fine. So let me. Yeah, Srini.
Yes, sir.
So we completed with the demo. Okay.